be good to just get some input, see where the audience is at.
I'd be most interested in your story of how you grew.
Okay. Well, that's one voice.
Second.
Okay, awesome. Coming features. So
coming features, yeah.
They're going to be fairly distinct. So I think like the first 15 minutes will be more about how it grew, and then like we'll transition more so to like the nitty gritty of the features, and like we have a demo to share. We have some alpha documentation to share. So if you are more interested in the features and not really interested in the story at all, you could also kind of just zone out a little bit for the first 15 minutes.
I know, this is Vanna. I'm interested in the story. I'm curious to see what you presented the first time in like a slide or something.
Like the first time we ever pitched PoolTogether?
Yeah, it would be really amazing to see that journey. The story is important to me.
Yeah, I definitely have some slides for that. Yeah, for sure. Trent, just let me know when I should get started. I can start sharing my screen.
For sure. Yeah, we'll get, like I said, a few more minutes to just let people trickle in. I think the live stream should be good. Andrew's giving me some nods.
Yep. Let's go.
So yeah, we'll drop some of the stream links around, and then maybe 2 or 3 more minutes.
Oh, so this is like live streaming out to Twitter right now and stuff?
Yeah, it's on Twitter, it's on YouTube. But this is where the action is. Everybody here, you get the personal interactions.
This is where people hopefully can ask questions. We can get into and so we'll also ask questions after each section. So we'll have a little section on like Q&A just about kind of the story section, and then Q&A more on like the V3 and the features coming.
Yeah, you can share your screen if you want to just put up that like initial slide.
Cool. I'll do that.
Make sure that's all working and that you've got the right set of slides.
Yeah, I think I do. The only issue is I can't see our chat window. So people, Trent, you'll just have to tell me.
Yeah, for sure. And as is tradition, feel free to leave your local time in the chat. We can see who's up latest to join this.
Yeah.
That's a fun idea. I like that. Ooh, Roshan with 3 a.m.
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I think that might win.
Where is
that? Of course, there's no way to verify this, but we'll trust you. Yeah,
we need foam for this, right?
If only.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, old Oz, the opposite side.
Mm-hmm.
Only 1 p.m. where I'm in New York City, quarantine. I mean, all you guys are probably in quarantine somewhere, but
yeah,
I feel like the quarantine in New York City is maybe a little bit more stringent than some other places.
This is murder, but you are worth it, from the chat.
Wow. Never felt more loved.
If someone's willing to come to your live stream at 3 a.m.
That's good.
You got something special.
Your questions get priority.
Yeah. All right. I think we're good. The live streams are going. We've got some tweets out.
Awesome.
Take it away.
Cool. So yeah, in case you guys missed it, basically 2 parts to this kind of presentation today. One is going to be basically how do we take PoolTogether from a hackathon project to a protocol that's being used by a lot of people, and raise venture capital and all that. So I'm gonna talk mostly about that. And then we're also going to talk about kind of the future of PoolTogether and the V3 for PoolTogether. And Brendan's going to talk most about that. He's going to share some stuff for the very first time, some alpha documentation, some demo stuff that's on testnets. It should be pretty fun. But whoa. Sorry, I had my notes on my iPad. I just tipped it over. They're pretty, give me 1 second. They're pretty disparate kind of talks. Yeah, so and we'll take a Q&A after each section. So just give me 1 second to fix this. Okay, so very first, before we jump to the story, just in case anyone doesn't know, what is PoolTogether? And PoolTogether is a prize savings protocol for Ethereum, or built on Ethereum. And if you don't know what prize savings are, it's a really interesting concept. Basically, it's a savings account where you don't earn any interest like a normal savings account, but instead of earning interest, you have a recurring chance to win prizes every day, month, week, year, depending on how the prize savings product is structured. So just wanted to level set. I assume most of you guys know what PoolTogether is, but that's the very first part. So that's what PoolTogether is. It's a protocol for prize savings on Ethereum. So then let me hop into kind of the backstory of how we got to where we are today. And I think hopefully my goal in sharing this is that it's really encouraging for people on this call, because PoolTogether started. Oh yeah, Trent was super generous. He said the subtitle I think for this talk was like turning your hackathon projects into a DeFi juggernaut, and I was like, nice. I've never thought of PoolTogether as a DeFi juggernaut, but I like that Trent said that. So anyways, how do you take your hackathon project into a DeFi juggernaut? And yes, just want to share some lessons from our story. And again, just ask questions as we go through. So our story starts in January 2019. That was when I first had the idea for PoolTogether. And I think this is kind of important, is like we started working on PoolTogether for the first time at Ethereum Denver in February 2019, so a little over a year ago. But I do think it's worth noting that like the idea preceded that. And I think that's the reason I think that's worth noting, is that ideas do matter, right? And like what you're working on does matter. And I think the first step to building a successful hackathon project that you can then turn into an actual protocol is to work on an idea that you have a good rational reason to believe can be a big idea worthy, with a market size big enough to be a protocol. And so the idea for a prize savings account came from basically just looking at prize savings accounts that were all over the world already in normal fiat world and seeing how popular they are, seeing that no one had ever done one on Ethereum, and then doing it on Ethereum. So anyways, that's the idea. So then ETH Denver is when I first started working on PoolTogether. And at the time, during that hackathon weekend, I worked with two other people who haven't worked on the project since, but they worked with me at ETH Denver. And I think that the good thing to capture from ETH Denver is like we didn't even get in the top 20 teams at ETH Denver. So I think the thing I want to share from that is like don't get discouraged if your hackathon project doesn't actually get any initial recognition. So the start of PoolTogether was pitching at ETH Denver, and it had a good reception to the pitch. Worked on it that weekend, but the judges weren't as keen about it. And yeah, we didn't even get in the top 20 teams out of like 40 teams. So it wasn't in the top 50%. So left ETH Denver, but I personally still really wanted to work on the project. And I met Brendan and Chuck, who became my co-founders, and Brendan's going to talk on this call at the end of ETH Denver at the happy hour at the very end. And basically decided to work with them on continuing the project. And so we spent 1 week and we built a Rinkeby prototype for PoolTogether. So, and honestly, we got to the end of this week and I was pretty discouraged. I was like, this does not live up to like the product that I want it to be. This does not have like the UI that I want. This does not have like, it doesn't capture the value proposition. But I was like, okay, I kind of thought about just like shelving it and just being like, okay, this is done. But I was like, I'm just going to try and post it on the MakerDAO Reddit. And so this was the post I put on MakerDAO Reddit. And this is like the only thing we did to like launch the Rinkeby prototype. And I basically said like, no loss lottery would die, shared the project, and it got some good reactions, right? It got like 99 upvotes, 68 comments. So it was like a pretty popular idea. And because I posted this, I got connected with Rich at MakerDAO, and they gave us a $15,000 grant to bring it to mainnet. And they also paid for our audit. And I also got connected because I posted this on Reddit to Dan Elitzer at IDEO Collab Ventures, who became our lead investor. So I think the reason I say this is like, you never know like what impact taking the next step might have. Like you can think like, oh, posting it on Reddit, like that's not going to really help me grow this project. But the reality is if I hadn't posted this to Reddit, I never would have gotten, we never would have gotten that grant from Maker. We wouldn't have met Dan. We wouldn't have gotten like our lead investor. And so like, I would just really encourage you guys to take the next step with your projects, even if it doesn't seem like it's going to lead to something, you don't know what it will lead to. So that got us to our prototype launch, which is in June. So we posted on Reddit, the Rinkeby prototype. That got us enough leverage to get the $15K grant. That funded us to get the prototype launched in June. And the prototype launch was really good, I would say. So we were like top of Product Hunt that day. We had a lot of like Twitter influencers talking about it. At the time, we didn't know what crypto Twitter was, but it definitely became a thing. And so that gave us a lot of momentum. And this is what that first site looked like, what I'm calling like the prototype of the mainnet prototype. So it was the same core idea. It was implemented in like a really clunky way. So like basically, I don't necessarily need to go into all the nitty gritty, but basically it's like the same core idea as what we have right now, but implemented in a kind of clunky way that was optimized for like speed. And we took 2 weeks to build this prototype. So 1 week on the Rinkeby prototype, 2 weeks on the mainnet, plus the audit. So just to give you a sense of like how much time we were spending. So this is very much like a find product market fit and then like build, rather than like build and then try and find product market fit. So launching though this prototype is what got us further market validation, which led to a lot, like once we launched it, we had a lot of like VCs reaching out and being like, hey, we want to talk, and like a lot of other projects and a lot of other people in the crypto space. It just kind of gave us like a name in the crypto space. And that basically gave us like the momentum to get another grant from Maker, which was even bigger. I think it was 30 or 40,000. So we got an additional 34,000 grant from Maker to improve basically the implementation, make a better implementation of this. And it also gave us some momentum to meet with investors and ultimately to raise the $1.3 million that we raised. So basically that prototype launch took us to what I call the product launch September 2019. And that's what we have today. So what we launched in September 2019, like from a core infrastructure perspective, is the same thing that we're running on right now. And it's been quite successful. I would say it's, we paid out 21,000 in prizes to people who have saved their money. We have, we just shared the stat yesterday, which I think is cool. There's more wallets holding PoolTogether DAI than Compound DAI, which is obviously like, it's a great stat for Compound too, because like that means people are building big things on top of their platform. But yeah, so that really got us where we are today. And now what we're really looking to do is make this, this is like our current website. But now what we're really looking to do and what we'll kind of transition to with the preview of the V3 is really try to transition PoolTogether with the V3 to be truly a protocol and not a product. And the difference between like product and protocol, I think it's definitely a continuum. But in our minds, like what makes something a protocol versus a product is the decentralization of that thing and also the extensibility of it, right? So right now, PoolTogether, you can build stuff on top of PoolTogether as is, and the code's open source, but you're limited, you're pretty limited. And what we've really wanted to do is basically define what's the core value proposition of the PoolTogether protocol, and then what are all the things that developers can play with. And the core value proposition of the PoolTogether protocol is this prize savings idea, right? No loss of deposited funds, full liquidity, and a chance to win prizes. So anything built on the PoolTogether protocol needs to maintain those characteristics. But there's a lot of other characteristics like the prize frequency. Is it every day? Is it every hour? Is it every year? The prize strategy, which is like, is there one winner? Is there 10 winners? Does half the prize go to charity? Does 100% of the prize go to charity? There's all these different things like the prize distribution and strategy. And then there's also these other things like where is the interest derived from, right? Like you can have multiple interest sources. You know, there's obviously more protocols than just compound. So where's the interest derived from? How is randomness derived, et cetera? And those are the tools that we're giving developers with V3, that these things will be static, right? Everything built on PoolTogether will keep these same core characteristics, but developers will be able to build things on top of PoolTogether that have all sorts of unique price strategies or frequencies or interest-bearing methods, et cetera. So anyways, that's kind of me transitioning for Brendan. So let's pause here though, before we talk more about V3 and all that. And like, let's go back to like questions about the story of PoolTogether. I was trying to give you context for how we got to where we are right now. But yeah, let's pause and I'll talk about if anyone has questions on the story of PoolTogether, and then we'll transition to Brendan and he'll dive more into this V3 stuff. So
Dan, do you wanna go ahead and ask?
Yeah, sure. Hey, Leighton. I remember hearing like when PoolTogether launched, and I was really impressed by it. Like, what good ideas are hard to come by? And what was like the inspiration or like the thought process that went into PoolTogether? You said that you were thinking about it for a while. Just like curious to hear about how you came towards the idea of creating like was it a product at that time, or were you already thinking about like making it into a protocol?
I think already thinking about making a protocol. So it's a really good question. So I definitely was spent like months kind of thinking and researching on this. And basically the starting point was like, how can you build a financial tool that helps people achieve economic mobility? And economic mobility, right, is this idea that people are able to move up and down income brackets. Like you don't live and die in the same income bracket. You don't die in the same income bracket you're born in. So like a healthy society has high economic mobility, meaning like if you're poor, you can become rich. And so I started with like, historically speaking, what has helped a society have higher economic mobility? So I was looking at like the invention of the stock market, the invention of the limited liability company, the invention of the bond market, credit cards, et cetera. And so I started thinking like, oh, maybe I'll do like, So basically to have economic mobility, you need to have a value generating asset. You need to be able to own something that creates value, even if you're not working, right? That's the whole idea of like, you're not just trading hours for money. But the problem is most people in the world don't have any capital. So they can't buy a value generating asset to begin with. And so if you want to help people achieve economic mobility, you have to give them a way to get a value generating asset. And to do that, they have to have capital. So you have to start with savings. So that was really the logic that got me to prize savings as a mechanism of helping people save more money by basically incorporating human psychology into savings. So this is that's a long answer, but I don't.
If you don't have enough capital to begin with, you're not really going to be able to win the lottery and move up in mobility. So how does that work with, like, if you have a very small amount of capital, how can you actually win the lottery and be able to move up?
Well, the idea more for PoolTogether is that the winning is a bonus that some people will get, but it's more so that like it incentivizes you to save over time, and then you can take your money out and put it into other things that have more traditional investment assets like stocks or bonds or things like that. But until you have like free money, until you have like excess capital in your savings, you just can't do that.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I mean, like Mark said, we did have like one winner that had 10 die in the pool, and they won like $1,600. So for sure that does happen. And that's like the awesome story you want to tell. But that's how we think about it, is like the winning is kind of like the bonus. It's the incentive to get people to save.
Cool. Thanks.
Any other questions on the story? I'm just looking through the chat here.
Question on randomness. Maybe we could address that in the features or the V3 section.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
So one question I had is like, how long did it take you to settle on like your plan? Was it always sort of in flux, or did you guys sort of have a point where you decided after the hackathon, like this has some real potential? Or at what point like was that milestone reached where you're like, all right, we're going to commit to this and we're going to kind of build it out as much as we can?
It was definitely an iterative thing. So we weren't thinking of it as a full-time project until like July, of 2019. So like after the prototype launch. So it continued to, so it was definitely iterative, and it was definitely like, okay, what can we get done in 1 week of time? And like, let's do that, launch that. What can we get done in 2 more weeks? Let's do that, launch that. And then it was after the success, I would say after the success that we had with the initial mainnet launch, that's when we were like, okay, we really feel like this has been fully validated. We really want to spend all of our time doing this. But yeah, it was, we were working on it for 6 months before that happened, or 7 months.
Right.
So.
Yeah. The other interesting thing that you pointed out was you didn't come in the top ranking at the hackathon. Like you said, you were pretty low on the list, but it just kind of proves that just because you don't necessarily, obviously we want all of the HackMoney projects and any event that we have, we want people to be successful and feel passionate about what they've built. But just because you may not have had a super successful event, that doesn't mean that you can't take it and continue building afterwards.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. So that's hopefully a good encouragement for people. Vanessa, I know you said you said you're specifically interested in the question or in the story. If you have any questions, let me know on the story before we transition. Yeah. How does PoolTogether make money? I can answer this real quick. We'll maybe talk a little bit about it with V3. We don't make money. That's why we raised money from venture capital. I think like we don't know how we will make money. I think that our general thesis though is like we're super early in DeFi, and if we can figure out a way to create a lot of value for a lot of people, then there'll be a way to capture some of that. Not sure what that will look like. Obviously, like we're seeing a lot of examples with how Uniswap, with how Compound is, well, I guess more Uniswap. Compound hasn't done this, but at least Uniswap, or even like Aave with their Lend token, which I don't actually understand the full economics of that, but there's pathways that are emerging to how to monetize these things. But that's definitely not a primary question for us. Yeah, let's actually, some of these questions are getting more to V3. So let's transition to V3, and then if those questions are still outstanding, let's we can take those. Does that sound good, Trent?
Yeah, perfect.
All right, Brendan, you want to take it away?
Excuse me, let me clear my throat. Yeah, been quiet for too long. Thanks, Leighton. Thanks for that intro. That was great. And thanks, Trent, for having us. I'm really excited to be here. Especially because I'm very excited about presenting V3 and what we have coming up, because like Leighton said, it's been a very iterative path. So we began with a very simple prototype that we built in a week. And Leighton, there's only so much you can build in a week. So I know it wasn't necessarily up to your standards. But then the following iteration was much more of a product. And we emphasized security and simplicity for us, both for the users and for ourselves. And so that's one reason why the random number generation was totally centralized. It was small enough prizes that it didn't matter. And it also meant that it was very simple to use. There was no commit reveal. There was no complexity to it. There was merely a deposit and a withdrawal, especially once we implemented the kind of deposit and then you're eligible for all subsequent prizes. That was a really great feature that we added. But that being said, we do want to transition to a protocol. We do want to make it so that anyone can spin up their own pools, they can run their own tests, and it becomes a more extensible system. So let me bring up my slides. I have a few slides introing us, and then I want to give a demo and then talk a little about the vision. So this is a little bit new to me, so bear with me. Let's pull up Keynote, hit play. Can we all see? Great. Okay. So with version 3.0, it begins the transition to a protocol. And a big part of that was the ability for anyone to create their own pool. And the reason that's really important is because it means that there's no administrator. We didn't want anyone to have any special privileges when using the pool, because that would mean that they would have some degree of control over it, whether it's upgrading the pool to essentially take custody if they want, or if it was manipulating the entropy so they could actually effectively select a winner. So there's a couple of things we're doing for this new version. While we're not going 100% autonomous, we're going to make sure that the user's principal is in a non-upgradable escrow contract. So that means it's not going to be, there's no way anyone else can have access to it. At least after audit, we'll make sure that everything's tickety-boo. The other aspect of that is the administrator. And all the administrator did was enter the random number and then select the winner. Essentially, they push the prize button, which used the random number to pick the winner. So what we're doing is we're exploring different RNG options for decentralization. And one of them was actually announced last night, was Chainlink. They've implemented a VRF. And the VRF has some really great properties. Essentially, it allows you to derive entropy from someone's cryptographic signature with a few extra little bits to make sure that there's only one unique signature for that particular piece of seed value that they're signing. So we're excited to introduce this, as well as VDFs and other instruments that are coming online. And so that part of the protocol will be upgradable. We will want to swap the RNG because that is still a moving target right now. And so what we're going to do is mitigate trust, mitigate the risk to just the interest on the pool. And so we feel that's a good halfway point. The other part of decentralization is the administrator. Excuse me, no, I covered that. So extensibility is much more interesting. So ever since we began this, we've gotten requests from people. There are people talking about philanthropic pools. So when you deposit, the interest actually goes to an organization, maybe UNICEF, maybe the Ethereum Foundation. And we've also had people asking, can we have multiple winners? They want many different ways to award the prize. And additionally, we've had many different requests to have a different interest source, whether it's, say, for example, Aave or any other alternative to Compound. So we're building the protocol such that those pieces are very swappable, especially in light of it becoming more decentralized. It makes it easier to open it up to people with certain precautions to make sure that it can't be manipulated. Because we do want to make it such that if someone creates a PoolTogether pool, they have a guaranteed minimum of security. We don't want it to be manipulable in any way. And the other piece that we're really excited about is onboarding. So PoolTogether from the beginning has been seen as a very awesome onboarding tool because people just understand the idea. Prize-linked savings accounts are a very old idea, and it's a very intuitive idea to people. I can explain it to my 80-year-old uncle, and he understood the mechanism, essentially. A big problem, though, with dApps these days is gas and fiat onboarding. And so the fiat onboarding is seeing some solutions like Wire, like MoonPay, these payment gateways that are really simplifying the KYC. In terms of gas, we are seeing some really awesome solutions. We really hold Dharma in high regard for the custom smart contract wallet they've implemented. So we'd love to see something like that for us. And so we have integrated the OpenGSN version 2 into the PoolTogether 3.0 contracts. So what that means is that we have full meta-transaction support across all functions, which eventually will mean that we'll be able to have a very simple front end where we cover the gas as part of our, again, we don't have a way to make profits. So we're just gonna keep making things as simple as possible. You know, that's a future problem to have. And so in this way, our focus for 3.0 will be decentralization, extensibility, and onboarding. We really want to try to keep things simple. I do see notifications pop up. I'll try to address any questions after I talk. Just want to keep rolling here. But let's talk about some fun stuff. So in terms of extensions, one of the most exciting things we're going to present to our users for 3.0 is the pod factory. So we did deliver pods for 2.0, but it was a single pod. It was very much was very much an experiment. We wanted to introduce a way for people to have a spectrum of choice between pure chance and the maximum prize and interest. There's a whole range of exposure you might want to chance in that regard between those two polar opposites. And so the pods is a very interesting mechanism that allows you to start to play with that spectrum. And we didn't do the factory at first because we wanted to do it very simply and very quickly. It's gotten a full audit, so this code is fairly secure as far as we know. No hacks have happened yet, but with 3.0, because of the simplification of the token model. Oh yeah, that's another 3.0 benefit, but I haven't really, I've kind of glossed over that. But the pod factory will be very easy to do for 3.0, and so we're excited about delivering that. Something else that we've heard from a few people, mostly in terms of the ability to easily track who owns what tickets, is the idea of binding tickets to NFTs. This is a very neat idea. And I was referred by a friend to a project called Charged Particles that captured this for DSR, for essentially for Chai. And so the fellow behind that, Rob Secord, I'm also really happy to announce that he's now part of our team. So we're really excited to onboard Rob over the next week. Yeah, woohoo! Yeah, he's awesome, and he's going to make a great addition to the team. So we're really excited about that. Yeah, so let's just go straight into the demo. So bear with me a moment while I switch context here. Let me just bump out of here and hit a browser. So like we mentioned, what we're really excited about is allowing people to build and test their own pools. Of course, we're still going to be running our quote unquote main pool, but we really want to start building this out as a protocol, as a platform for anyone to use that has a certain amount of flexibility. So as part of the V3 alpha launch, we've launched a prize pool builder. And so you can find this tool at builder.pooltogether.com, and it allows you to spin up your own pools on COVID. And so here you can select between DAI or USDC.
Brendan, I'm still seeing your slide. I'm still seeing your
slides. Are you still
seeing
seeing slides?
Yeah.
Maybe it was bound to the window rather than the, here, let me just stop sharing and then share again. So this is what I was worried about. It just can't go perfectly, can it? There's always something. Okay. Can we see everything?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So, so yeah, this is our prize pool builder. So we can see that you can select the token to use. Right now, it's currently bonded to or bound to Compound. So we're still attached to Compound for the time being. That's going to be a slower process, we believe, because we want to minimize risk. We want to make sure that we're binding it to protocols that have proven to be secure. But we are planning to introduce more in the future. And now we get to select the prize distribution strategy. So this is a point of extensibility that we're really excited about, because right now PoolTogether has a single random winner. One person gets chosen, but what if we could choose 10? What if we could choose 8 and then have a fraction of that go towards some philanthropic cause? There is probably the biggest prize-linked savings account in the world is the UK Premium Bonds. And while winners receive a lot of the prize money, a large fraction goes towards the government to fund public services. And so there's all sorts of different things you can do by implementing a custom prize strategy that we're really excited about. So here we're selecting, and so here, if you select a custom prize strategy, you can enter the address of the contract. I'll show you the documentation on that after. But so if we go with a single random winner, we enter, let's say, a prize period of 60 seconds. And here you can name the tokens. There's the sponsorship token. So that's the token that's such that you aren't eligible to win, but you contribute to the prize. And then there's the ticket. And so here you name the ticket. So let's create a prize pool. Demo time. Everyone cross your fingers. Fortunately, it's COVID, so I think it has fairly fast confirmation times. So they should pop up in just a moment. And this UI was built by Chuck, who I believe is also on the call. Another slick UI. Very excited. I was expecting to build a prototype. This turns out to be much more polished. So now the contracts have been created, and now we open the pool in our reference front end. And so this reference front end is going to be made available to everyone. So we want it to get forked. We want it to get customized. We want everyone to be able to have access to be able to build their own front end. So far, we've kept our front end pretty tight because we actually have had clones in the past. And so we're very concerned about phishing attempts. And so we've kept that pretty tight on our end. But this reference front end, we want to make sure that it gets opened up to the community. And you can see here, we have all the stats that we want to see. You've got the ability to deposit and withdraw. Also, once this rewardable times down to 0, anyone can hit reward. And so this is the sort of decentralized component that we're really excited about, is that anyone can keep the pool going. It doesn't need any administrator. So this is going to be just leaps and bounds beyond what we have now. So that's a quick little demo. I'll make sure that you guys have links to that after the call ends. And now I'll just quickly show you the documentation. So these docs, so you go docs.pooltogether.com. These are the 3.0 docs. So these do not apply to the current system. We are releasing these to help encourage people to start building early on so that we can actually iterate with your feedback, because we want to make this as easy to use as possible. So here we cover the builders themselves. You can actually access them on chain if you want. We cover the prize pool itself, so you can actually look through all the different functions that you need to call. FYI, the token model is much simpler. So when you mint tickets, they are minted right away. This is a pretty critical difference from V2 as well, but it's a little less known, I guess, because people tend to just deposit into PoolTogether and just, be done with it. But in reality, we want to simplify that as much as possible as well. So again, I'll add that link to the chat channel so you guys can see it after, if anybody wants to start building on it. And so I just want to close by talking about the sort of long-term vision of where we want to go with this protocol, because we kind of alluded to this with the decentralization, but we just really want to reinforce this in the sense that our long-term vision for PoolTogether is for it to be community owned and governed. That's the whole purpose of a protocol. It's essentially gets turned into, I want to say public service, but it's almost like a company that anyone can be a part of. It's like it's not only just public trading, but it's also just anyone can engage with it. So we've really, that's our long-term goal. And short-term, what we're going to try to start doing is progressively increase community engagement. So we want to start involving people in developing bits and pieces of the protocol. So start, farming that out to people who are really interested in it, as well as we have a really interesting mechanism that we're developing, but it's still kind of in the process, but we want to essentially build loyalty tokens into the protocol, such that if you've used PoolTogether for a long time, you just accrue tokens that could eventually be used for different parameters, different ways to engage with the protocol. So that's something that we're getting started with. It's a little bit under wraps, so I can't say too much about it at the moment, but I just wanted to throw it out there because we are thinking about it and it is really important to us. So that pretty much wraps it up. Open to any questions about V3 or about the protocol in general, anything technical. I think there was something mentioned about the RNG, and I'm happy to answer that. So let me just pop out of screen sharing so I can see everybody. Okay. So let's have a look at the chat here. It looks like, I believe the RNG was the first question. So let's dig into that a little. How we did it previously was we literally generated a random number ourselves and submitted to the contract. In V3, we're exploring a couple different ways of adding random numbers, but what's available right now, which we're really excited about, is the Chainlink VRF. And how this works is it essentially allows an operator, an off-chain operator, to sign a piece of data that we determine on-chain, and they don't control what they can sign, and they can't actually control the signature because they've already committed to what their signature is. And then they submit the signed data on chain, which we can then consume as a random number. It does have a few drawbacks in that there's potential for griefing. So we're looking into additional RNG sources such as VDFs. VDFs are slowly coming online. It's actually the same technology used for 2.0 is being brought into 1.0. So we're really excited to see how that plays out, but it is evolving and it will continue to evolve in the next couple of months. So that will be a slight moving target for us, but we do have some really great options now. So it's only going to improve, which we're really excited about. So let's have another look at this. So I see one from Trent. It's just the last one. How long was your team familiar with crypto before starting the venture? Well, let's go back a little bit to Leighton's narrative. So I can tell my half of that. So for about maybe a year and a half, or maybe almost 2 years before that, I was running a dev shop called Delta Camp with Chuck, who's also on this call. Chuck is the design front end half. I'm the smart contract side. And so we were doing work for Open Zeppelin. We were doing work for Medix Protocol. And then we did some work for Leighton. And Leighton's work, this idea really blew up. And we were super excited to jump on board with it. In fact, I actually, Leighton, I want to go back to that night because it was the Thursday night at ETH Denver where it was the pitch event. And I actually, since then, I'm sort of disappointed that there haven't been other pitch nights. But this one in particular was great because it was in the big castle space, if anyone's been there. And it was, each hacker went up and on the microphone discussed the idea that they had. And then they would organically form into groups after. And Leighton pitched his idea and I just loved it. So I made sure to just stay in touch with them throughout the event. And then, and I'm so glad that we ended up getting together because I think this is a really exciting product. I think it's going to be so good for onboarding once we simplify some of these gas issues. So yeah, we'd been working in crypto for a couple of years professionally before that. And previous to that, Chuck was involved in, I guess, speculating, buying and selling crypto. I think my real entry into ETH, I think I first bought ETH maybe 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, something like that. So yeah, that's how long I've been involved. So I do see another question. So don't have to wait until the next round to be eligible when you deposit. Exactly. So let's talk a little bit about the new ticket model. So previously we wanted to prevent people from gaming the system by ensuring that everyone has had their deposit in PoolTogether for a minimum length of time. And so that's why when you deposited, it took a week until those were eventually minted into tickets so that everyone had a kind of minimum week period. So we kind of ensured that no one can just pop in and out, like sort of flash loan, bust the system. Although flash loans weren't a thing back then, but, and so that's why we built this kind of this mechanism. The problem with that is that you have to batch mint tokens and nothing plays nicely with that. It's also conceptually difficult because you put money into this thing and you get nothing in return right away. You just get a balance update. You don't get any tokens. You don't see that. There's no sort of visceral change. And so with this new model, we've actually flipped it on its head. And now we're having people wait after when they withdraw. But they don't really have to wait. They can convert it back into tickets. It's not locked by any means. And through this loyalty token, we're going to make that so that eventually they can just withdraw instantly without any kind of repercussions, I guess. So long story short, when you buy into PoolTogether, you will get your tickets right away now. So I hope that answers your question.
I think that the recent one here on any idea of non-random logic is good.
Oh yeah, so yeah, that's a really interesting one. We were actually.
Do you want to read it out?
Oh yeah, excuse me. Yeah. So the question is, any idea of non-random logic of how to distribute the prize? For example, connect it to winning a game or a competition, because that's what our project is doing. Yes, that is very cool. And that's something that I've talked a little bit about actually with the Abridged team, because they're doing a lot of interesting work with kind of memes and gaming, because of course, James Young is involved in gaming. And so I think it'd be very cool to create a custom prize strategy that does pay attention to a game, does listen to potentially the people holding tickets or the people eligible to play the game, and then it can then disperse the funds as dictated by, say, the game smart contract or something like that. So while we have baked the random number generation into the core prize pool smart contract, it's up to the prize strategy whether it wants to use it or not. we just wanted to make sure that the RNG was kind of baked in so that people didn't have to think about that. It's really complicated, but it's up to you as the prize strategy developer whether or not you want to use that random number. So you could do whatever the heck you want with it. So we feel it's pretty convenient.
I can take that second question on Scott, just in terms of there definitely is. The question is, what rules does PoolTogether have to abide by? Is it like a lottery? And there definitely are a lot of rules that we have to abide by. That was actually like one of the main reasons for fundraising, was basically to be able to like hire lawyers to like do due diligence on all that and make sure we're compliant with it all. PoolTogether is not a lottery. It's as if you were in the beginning of the talk, it's a prize savings, and there legislatively, legally, there is like a separate classification for prize savings products versus like lottery products. Yeah, and obviously, like, you know, that depends. There's a lot of variables there. It depends on what jurisdiction you're in, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I can't speak to all the specifics, but it definitely is something that we have to pay attention to and spend money on in terms of compliance.
So I'm just having a poke through here to find another question. Do we have another technical question, or not technical? It could be anything. Both Leighton and I here. Let's see. Oh, someone's asking about the NFT idea. Yeah, the NFT idea is interesting. It actually was born, well, we thought about it a long time ago, but the sort of more recent issue was in really great discussions with Aave, because they're looking deeply into integrations and they've done some really interesting work. And they wanted to be able to track who owns what tokens, who owns what tickets. And what's so cool about NFTs is that if we do have an escrow, then we've added one layer of indirection. So between the holder of the NFT and then the NFT holds the tickets. And so in computer science, if you ever have a problem, just add one layer of indirection. And so that's essentially what the NFTs are. And so using these NFTs, also it makes transfers super cheap, because now you're paying the whatever 50,000 gas or something to transfer these let's call them, you know, gift cards, token bundles, ticket bundles, who knows. But we're excited about that, because I think that'll really open up some new interesting ways to integrate PoolTogether into other products. Yeah, exactly. So somebody says they'd like to stake a pool ticket to a meme NFT. Absolutely. Wouldn't that be cool? There's also actually, Leighton showed me last night this new product. Leighton, what was that really cool sort of? Zora, yeah. So you can basically receive these NFTs and then burn them to get the merchandise. It'd be kind of cool if, like, while you hold them, you were eligible to win this lottery, and then when you burn them, you just got the die from the ticket. So at least you sort of, while you're waiting for your merchandise, you can have some kind of fun with it versus just kind of holding something until it happens. So yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can do there. We're really excited to kind of ideate about that.
Yeah, there's a few more questions on like regulatory stuff, as well as, does USDC present risk of being stabilized? I mean, on the regulatory stuff, again, you know, it's hard to give specifics, just because like that's obviously with our lawyers. I think that, you know, the question was, are regulatory requirements for PoolTogether extensive? I mean, there's an extensive amount of work around regulatory compliance. I think part of what makes it extensive is because it's so so kind of gray, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that, I mean, most of these regulations weren't written with DeFi in mind. That basically is what it boils down to. So there is an extensive amount of work that needs to be done to understand what is the purpose of this regulation, how does it fit into this ecosystem. USDC present risk of being centralized stablecoin? I'd say yeah, it does. But, you know, on the flip side, DAI has a risk of being a decentralized stablecoin. So every stablecoin has a risk associated with it. And I think what we're trying to do is present options for what people are most comfortable with using, and also make sure they know what those risks are. So it's not necessarily about completely eliminating risk, but it's about being transparent about the risk. So
there's an interesting question asked by Harry. How do you validate the payouts of community pools to a charity, for example? How do you prevent fraudulent pools from being created? So that's a really interesting question. And it kind of speaks to the scope of the platform. How much are we, I want to say liable for, but it's less legalese and more just, I guess, responsibility. Because say, for example, Stripe. Stripe is a payments platform, and if I wanted to, I could set up a malicious Stripe account and a malicious website that just takes people's money and doesn't give them any products in return. So I think there's a sort of a limitations to how much we can enforce as a protocol. I think the point of the protocol is that anyone can do whatever they want with it. However, in terms of the PoolTogether, the official PoolTogether pool, it's going to be managed by us, so it will remain a trustworthy source. We're going to be checking if we do add charities to our own pool. We'll definitely be investigating them to make sure that they're appropriate and not fraudulent.
You could do a little bit of filtering on your front end too, right? If you've got like bad actors coming in all the time, you just kind of.
Well, there's a nice
sure.
parallel there with like Uniswap, right? Like anyone can
Right.
create a Uniswap market for their tokens, but there's only a certain set that are supported on the Uniswap's front end natively. And I think that's like a similar parallel that we'll see is that anyone can create a pool and, you know, they can do whatever they want with it. We're not going to be presenting in our UI just any random pool that people create, you know? So that's a difference.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to post links to our websites just to make sure that everyone has access to that. Yeah. So here is a link to the builder, the pool builder, if you do want to try building your own on
post our Discord too, Brendan, or I'll post a link to our Discord.
Yeah. So there's the builder. Oh, how do I make it a link? Oh, well, you might have to cut and paste that. But
yeah, I don't think the Zoom chat is friendly to links.
Okay, well, I'll post them anyway, and then come into our Discord if you want some more help.
Yeah. I had a general question about, so your intent is to build a community around this of contributors and people that are sort of interested in building the PoolTogether community itself over the long term. How do you envision that happening if you guys sort of put together your initial strategy? Because definitely we've seen just generally with cryptocurrencies and then smaller applications, like if you don't have a community, you're only going to last as long as your runway, right? So we have just some initial thoughts on that of like getting people interested, and maybe if you're going to go the DAO route, have you looked at any frameworks like Aragon or Moloch, anything like that?
I mean, we haven't dove deep into this. I think to me, the first step is like tracking the contributions, right, of people. And so that goes back to like that loyalty token that Brendan mentioned that we're still kind of ideating to some degree of like how it best fits into the protocol. But I think what we want to make sure is that we can track how much people use the protocol and make sure that there's a way to quantify that so that the people who use the protocol the most have a quantification of that, and then can have a say in decisions related to the protocol. And I think that's like the basic framework we're going for. I think the other like, you know, governance thing that has become really clear is just like minimum viable governance, right? Like make the governance as simple as possible. And so I think I see a model similar to like a compound model with like proposals with votes on them versus something maybe more like a DAO, where in my mind, like DAOs are often more just like a little bit more intensive. So we definitely want to minimize like very, very few governance parameters, very, very few governance things. But this first step right now is like making sure it's like quantifying people's contribution. And the primary way to do that is to quantify like how much have they put into PoolTogether, how much have the pools that they've created accrued, like those types of stats. So that's kind of good. There's kind of a very natural way to track that.
So it's you're in the early stages of sort of framing what that's going to be.
Yeah, for sure. In the early stages of framing, how that will play out. But it's not like a 2021 thing. It's like, you know, end of this year, early next year type of thing.
Okay. I know we're wrapping up, and I see at least one more question in the chat. But before, while I have everybody's attention and you're not dropping off, a few HackMoney updates. So this week was pretty packed. I mean, we've still got a bunch of events. Obviously, we're finishing up Tuesday's event right now. Tomorrow is the DeFi panel. We are having a discussion moderated by Camilla Russo of the Defiant and a bunch of awesome DeFi builders. So I encourage you to check that out. It's going to be a pretty high level discussion, but it'll dip down into like how they actually engage with builders and how they see DeFi developing in terms of the tools and strategies that people use on mainnet. So super interesting. I encourage everybody to come out. That will be at 12 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Then on Thursday, we're running the second version of our hack feedback session. You guys had mentioned that there was a pitch session at ETH Denver that you really liked. So what we did is before the hackathon actually started, we ran a brainstorming session. Then we had like a mini pitch session last week where you could get feedback from mentors. And then we're going to do it again this week and hopefully next week as well. So teams can get feedback from mentors. So again, that's tomorrow starting at 10 a.m. We've already got a bunch of mentors lined up. This is strongly encouraged if you're trying to refine how you explain your idea, how you present. So make sure to register because the space is limited for that. All the links are in the information channel in HackMoney. And then the last but not least, the Hayden's AMA, the Uniswap founder AMA is on Friday. We should have a time for that soon. But again, all of these things are going on. I encourage people to check them out because it's all really great content and people that you can learn from, hopefully. Okay, I'm done. Oh, no, I'm not. Week 3 check-ins are tomorrow. So make sure you're checking your cohort channel and you're responding to the ETHGlobal team member. We just want to make sure that you're kind of maintaining your progress and still engaged with everything. You haven't hit any huge blockers. Okay, now I'm done.
Thanks a lot, Trent.
Yeah, no, and this is great. I learned a lot of things from you guys that I hadn't necessarily, I've been following PoolTogether for a bit now, and it's always nice to hear these little tidbits.
There's so much going on behind the scenes, and I mean, we don't shout it all out publicly. You know, there's a lot of internal discussions, and so it's really fun to be able to, you know, include you guys on some of what we're talking about right now, because this alpha is still very much a work in progress. I mean, things may change, things may break, and so we're really excited to be able to incorporate more people's feedback and iterate earlier on the new version. So,
yeah, I think there's a few, unless we hit them all.
I think I answered most of them in the chat. I think there's one more about like what's stopping someone from creating a pool and rewarding it to themselves. And I think the answer to that is like, sure, they could do that, but like, why would anyone deposit into that pool? And I think, yeah, so I think that's the, there's nothing stopping them, but there's also nothing that's going to make someone put money into that because they would have to be build that all. Like we're not going to show that on the front end.
Right.
Yeah. Any more questions from anyone? Feel free to jump into our Discord as well. Yeah. There's really healthy chats going on right now.
For sure.
Awesome.
Any final comments?
I don't think so.
Good luck to all the hackers. I mean, I've been part of a number of hackathons, and they're very exciting. This is a really interesting format, so I'm very excited to see what products and protocols come out of this, because you guys have a lot of time, so it should be really interesting. And I'm glad you guys did a pitch event as well. I mean, I've been so heads down. This is probably the most exposure I've received for HackMoney right now. So yeah, it's really cool to hear what you guys are doing. But thanks everyone. Really good chatting with everybody, and yeah.
Yeah, we're likewise looking forward to all the submissions. It'll be very interesting to compare what 2 days and 2 nights gets versus a full month. It's gonna be super interesting. I'm excited.
That's it. Right on.
All right, we'll see you guys.
Take care, guys.
We'll talk to you soon.
Have a good rest of the week. Thank you everybody for coming.
Yep.
See ya.
Bye-bye.